Welcome everybody to another episode of Haunted Vermont. This time, we're gonna start promoting something that will be out next year. From the Beyond, Strangeness in the Bennington Triangle. Now, this is a documentary that was filmed back in June 2025 and pretty much was one project that was going on at the same time of 5 others, and Heather was very busy. But without further ado, what can you expect from the upcoming documentary from Small Town Monsters, From the Beyond, High Strangeness, and the Bennington Triangle? Well, if we go on their Kickstarter from their 2025, we can find this information. And it says, and I quote, "Deep in the forest of Vermont, the Bennington Triangle has become a hotspot for the unexplainable. UFO sightings, Bigfoot encounters, eerie white anomalies, and a string of mysterious disappearances that defy logic. This chilling documentary blends dramatic, stylized recreations with gripping eyewitness interviews to unravel the dark and perplexing history. Could there be a connection between these strange phenomena, or the Bennington Triangle simply a magnet for the unknown? Through expert analysis, first-hand account, and immersive storytelling, the Bennington Triangle dares to explore the truth hidden within the shadows of New England's most haunted wilderness. I hope we can pull it off, and I hope that you guys actually enjoy it. Well, joining me for this chat is Heather Moser. Thank you for helping with this conversation, because we had a little chat last time.
Yeah, hi, I'm super excited to be back.
Yes, Heather, me too. I'm so glad, and I'm finally, excited to actually talk about this, because, I felt like it was such a hard time last time, because it was just like, there's so much stuff going on. And with I guess before everything else, it sounds like you guys have been crazy busy again since the last time we talked, and I don't know if this got even more crazier by the time you guys came to Vermont or what, but I know you guys had a crazy adventure here, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely leading up to that was actually the filming that we did when we came to Vermont was, at least on my end, the most intensive prep and execution that we have ever done for a film shoot, because we were there, I think 6 days is what we had for like actual filming. It was 5 or 6 days, but in that time frame, we filmed the Bennington movie, we filmed the Kinderhook movie, we filmed the majority of a series called Sasquatch Unearthed Northwoods, and Seth also filmed like 2 episodes, or attempted to film 2 episodes worth of his show Decoded. So like all of that was being filmed during the same time frame, and we had all hands on deck for that. The entire crew had come in from, like, Aaron flew in from Texas, and Alex was close. He's like Massachusetts area, I feel like, or New Hampshire. Yeah, New Hampshire. It's all the same. No, I'm just kidding. New Hampshire area. That's right. And so it wasn't as bad for him, but normally Alex isn't with us on the big shoots, unless he's just happens to be there filming his own stuff. But in this instance, he was there to assist us in getting everything filmed. So it was crazy, and it was unseasonably hot. Like, I know it was summer, but it was like 100 degrees the one day, which was ridiculous. We actually had to reschedule something that we had planned because it was going to be an outdoor like actual hiking thing that Seth wanted to do, and we were like, yeah, we're not hiking for hours in 100-degree heat. It's not happening.
I wonder if that was for the fire tower.
That one, it was something that he was going to do for Decoded. So I'm not exactly sure where it was that it was in Vermont, though. I do know it was that. but it was going to be too much. So he was like, we can't do that today. But yeah, anyway, no, it was wild. That was the most prep that I've had to do, because in the past, normally, maybe max 2 projects that we're filming at the same time. Because if we're traveling and we're in an area where we can cover a couple of topics, then we try to do that while we're there. But this was a situation where it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was a lot of prep work. It was a lot of pretty close to sleepless nights for me, just trying to make all the puzzle pieces fit, and then there's always the concern with any shoot that, people may back out, something may come up. It's without fail that something changes on the fly while we're actively in filming. But I always get nervous, like, what if somebody, especially when it comes to witnesses, what if they get nervous and they're not ready to talk, and then they back out, and then, which is fine. I understand that. The only thing is, from a logistic standpoint, it throws everything else off. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, long story to say, yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, and I didn't realize like the whole crew were there until afterwards. I know
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say it for the sake for right now. I know when I met you and Courtney, you
Mm-hmm.
were saying like everybody's out on the road and blah blah blah, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, oh, there's probably just only a couple people, but no, I found out afterward when you guys posted like, we're done with Vermont, here's the whole crew, and it's just like, oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. So I guess beforehand, there's some things that caught my attention on a podcast that you guys had dubbed the Vermontan edition. Very clever, I guess. But there was a couple things that really like stuck out with you guys talking about your time here and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go through that a little bit. But one thing I just had to say real quick is that really caught my attention at near the beginning, where Steph was not really trying to say like Vermont felt like home, but I was thinking maybe he felt it more as like a familiar landscape or something similar or something, I think is what he was trying to say. But
Yeah.
it kind of went into the fact where he got so excited or something because he remembered a place and something about stopping to get fudge for you, and then you mentioning something about Moose Caboose and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting. It's kind of
Yeah.
fun to hear those type of tales and stuff like that. But I mean, but later on you start talking about the weird traveling though, where
Mm-hmm.
if you don't mind going into that just a little bit, is like you
Yeah.
you guys were talking about GPS problems or
Oh my goodness.
something, and I don't
Yeah.
know if you can vouch for it, but I know Seth was also talking about something about when he was driving, even if it was like local, maybe to pick up groceries or something, is
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he kept driving, like there was no
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like there, which um Courtney and I experienced that multiple times, because there were moments in our schedule where we had, like, I don't know, 45 minutes to run into town really quickly, pick up some groceries and get back before the next interview came, or we had to start making dinner, or what have you. And first of all, going into town wasn't the issue. Getting into town was fine. Our GPS would send us different ways home every time. It didn't matter. Didn't matter where we went. It always took us a different route, and each route was so vastly different than the other. It wasn't, and it could be even the same place. Like, we went to the one grocery store, I think, a couple times, and it still took us home 2 different ways, but way out and around. To the point where I think it took us almost 40 minutes to get back the one time, which it should have only taken like 15. And it just didn't make any sense. The GPS was never giving us the same directions from one place to another. When it came to the time being weird, that was all over Vermont into Kinderhook area, because we drove over to Kinderhook, of course, to film there. But between Bennington and Kinderhook, and then it even felt this way when we drove over to interview Joseph Citro, who's in the southeastern part of Vermont, so a little ways away. All of that seemed like we'd see on the GPS, an hour or 2 hours. And then 20 minutes would go by and you'd look at the GPS and it would be like 58 minutes left or something. Like it literally was moving so slowly that there were points where all of us that were in the car would look at each other and we're like, are we collectively losing our minds? It makes no sense why this is happening. But yeah, so that was it. It was that as we were driving, the GPS would mess up constantly. But even when the GPS wasn't messing up, like on our way to Kinderhook, the GPS was pretty straightforward. But it seemed like we were driving forever and the time would barely change on the GPS. And it was exhausting at a point. We're like, are we in some weird time slip somehow? Is there something to this Bennington Triangle area that messes with time? Like it was really weird. We all experienced it, and at different times, and together. So yeah, it was odd.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to clarify with the GPS. Now, you talking like GPS from your phone or like inside your vehicle?
Yeah, the GPS on our phone. That's what we use, like an app.
Yep.
Yeah, GPS on the phone is what would mess up constantly, which, to be fair, Courtney insists on using an app called Waze, which I have very mixed feelings on. And it on its own, on a regular day, can mess up, but this was absurd. Like this was way different than what it normally does.
Oh no.
So, and I would even try to bring up, like Google Maps or whatever, and we were working against not only the GPS itself being weird, but also our phones aren't from the area. And I don't know what normal cell service is out there anyway, but it seems like every time we travel, it's hit or miss on whether our cell phones work. So, yeah, we were having issues with connectivity as well once we got outside of Wi-Fi range.
Yep. Yeah, so funny little story I'll share here just because, actually, no, maybe I'll wait and save it for your interview because that would be perfect for one of the guys you actually talked with. But
Okay.
before I share that, because what made me realize that too is because he sort of had a similar thing, and then you guys did obviously, but I actually found him and reached out, and he actually had something similar, but kind of same exact thing that happened with me. So, but in a different area, which is interesting. So, so I was just like, oh man, this would help trying to figure out more of what the hell is going on out here. So, I think I don't know if this involved you, Heather. Well, yeah, I think it did. You guys went up to the mountaintop, right, in the fire tower. Was that you as well?
We tried. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that was a pretty bumpy ride, I guess, from going.
Yeah. So we had interviewed a gentleman who had told us a spooky story, a haunted house situation where he had seen an actual apparition when he was younger. And Andy, he was the one we interviewed on the park bench. He was sitting outside and he said he saw the older woman at the top of the stairs. He's from the area, local, and after his interview, we were talking to him about how we wanted to try to get up to the fire tower because Vermont it's obviously gorgeous. We were there in the middle of, well, not the middle, but in summer and everything full foliage. So when it comes to having some of these grand landscape shots, you would have to get way high. So we were looking for the fire tower to get some sort of panoramic view of the area from the mountains. And he told us, well, yeah, you can just practically drive up to it. And we're like, okay, because we were also working against a very abbreviated timeline to get some of these shots that we were hoping to get. So hiking for like 3 hours one way wasn't going to be in the cards. So he told us about this fire tower or this fire road. And he said, just follow that and it'll take you right up to it or very close to it or something along those lines. And Seth had his Jeep, which is built for off-roading, thankfully. And we had to go extremely slowly. And we did end up spending a good amount of time on this road where you can't see anything. I mean, we could film out the window, I guess, but the foliage was so thick you couldn't really see anything. But we drive and drive and drive, and eventually we come to a closed gate. And the road continued after that, but the gate was shut. It was like locked shut, with warnings and all of that. And so we're like, all right, well, I guess this is where it ends. And then we had to turn around and go back. We never got to go to that fire tower. We did go to a fire tower, but it was not on Glastonbury. The Glastonbury fire tower is the one that we were trying to get to with the Jeep. I think it was Glastonbury. But yeah, it was an experience too. I was fortunate enough that I was sitting in the back seat in the middle, so I wasn't getting bounced around and bumped and thrown off of the doors of the vehicle. But everybody else felt pretty bruised by the end of the ride.
Oh, I believe it. That's funny.
Also, just to throw this out there, at one point, because we didn't know, he had made it seem like it wasn't going to be that long of a drive, which I suppose it wouldn't be if you could go any speed at all. But because of how rutted the roads were, we had to go extremely slow. At some point, I don't know, 45 minutes in or so, I said, we may be adding ourselves to the missing people in our own movie here, because did anyone bring water? And I think we had like one bottle of water between us, and Aaron had like a can of Pepsi, and we had no food because we thought we were just going up this road and coming right back. So we hadn't prepped for, potential abandonment in the middle of the mountains. And we had no cell service. We were in SOS mode. So I was like, all right, well, we may have just added ourselves to the list. Like, does anybody have a red jacket they want to throw on just for fun here? Like, I don't understand what we were thinking. But, you live and you learn, and we'll do better next time.
For sure. No, I just thought it was funny because it makes me wonder if it's the same way that I sort of know, which you kind of go around this bend that kind of weeds up in the mountain, but like, I don't know. I'm just going to say for the example here, maybe like a quarter of the way up this bend, if you look to your left, you can see like these tire marks, and that's where you like go in.
Well, what I remember is we were driving on these, it was a small road, like the regular road. And you do end up, as this bend turns to the right, to the left, there is what looks like what would be a driveway for a very elaborate looking house. It's like, I don't know, a very huge, beautiful home. And it looks like if you turn left, you're going to go into their driveway, but you're not. That's the fire road. So maybe that is the same place.
Yeah, I think it is, because when I've been up that way before, I've seen a lot of people that have like 4-wheel drive and 4-wheelers and stuff just take this road, and I'm just like looking at it going, yeah, there's no way in hell am I gonna bring that car through that, if that's where people are telling me I should go.
Yeah. We didn't see anybody on the road except when we first got on. It was like within the first 20 minutes, there was a truck that was coming down the road. And somehow we managed to pass each other, even though it's a very narrow corridor. But the guy stopped and we said, how's it look? Meaning, and he was like, oh, it's fine. I went up, whatever. It's fine. He made it. So we're like, all right, well, if he can make it, we can make it. But we didn't say, hey, is there a gate in the way? Like, or anything like that. So, and who knows how far he went, because we were driving for a good while, but, yeah, it was something.
Yeah, I mean, you still had fun nonetheless, and like
Yeah.
you said, you learned a valuable lesson on that day.
Absolutely.
Well, that's really the note that I have from that podcast for, again, people, it's from their podcast. Oh God, I'm going to butcher the name already. Monster something,
Monsteropolis.
Monsteropolis. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's called the Vermont edition. You can check out all the cool stuff there. Which, by the way, it sounds like you guys need to still record your Kinderhook episode or something. Steph wanted to share so much.
We are way behind on our
It's all
episodes.
good. It's all good. I just remember hearing like, oh, Steph wants to come back to that, but now would be the perfect time, sort of. Anyway, yeah. Was there anything else, Heather, that you would like to share about your experience otherwise before we hop on in?
Not that I can think of. I'm ready for I mean, you may jar some memories here.
Oh no. All right. Well, all right. So here we are now, finally, where you are able to do like your research, maybe prior to this, or even while this is going on, getting ready to even drive out here and etc. But especially with these interviews, to finding these people. So I guess I will let you take the floor of basically like, tell us how this all began to have you get prepping.
So not the summer of 2025, because June of 2025 is when we filmed this, but June of 2024 was actually my first time in Vermont. My family took a family vacation, and we're actually headed to Maine, but had decided, instead of going through Massachusetts, which is the fastest way apparently to where we were going, we wanted to go up into Vermont and through New Hampshire, but we wanted to go through Vermont because at the time there was this really popular song on the radio where this guy, he's singing about like a lost love or whatever, but he says, I love Vermont, but it's the season of the sticks. And my kids loved that song. I had never been to Vermont, but at the time they were like, can we please go if we're close because of that song? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I've always heard Vermont's beautiful. Let's do it. So we drove through, and of course, being June, everything is green. And I can tell you what I am assuming Seth meant when he said it feels like home, in that Vermont looks a lot like West Virginia as far as the rolling hills and everything being green and lush and beautiful. And that's exactly what it felt like the first time that I saw Vermont. And I don't know if that's like Route 7. I can't remember that you come in on. But anyway, just absolutely gorgeous. So
yeah, Route 7.
Went through Vermont. Yep. Yeah. And I demanded then on the way back home from Maine that we go through Vermont again. We actually got an Airbnb and stayed in Vermont on the way home from family vacation. But a month or so after the family vacation, I go to Seth's house. We have a meeting about what are we going to do for 2025? What's coming up, and we're throwing ideas back and forth. And I think he was the one who said Bennington Triangle. But as soon as he said it, I was like, yes, please. I want to go back to Vermont. let's do it. Like it's perfect because there's so many elements to the triangle that fit into what we've already done as a company, as far as the general weirdness, the high strangeness. But then it also brings in elements of like a true crime, missing persons aspect. And we can get into that a little deeper than we have before, because we've only lightly touched upon it, but not gone into it in any sort of depth. And to be fair, we didn't go into a lot of depth with this, but more than we have in the past. So I felt like this would be a really great fit. And Bennington is, I feel like, just a little over an hour away from Kinderhook, New York. So it made sense that we do both of them at the same time. And so that idea had started, and I was like, okay, Well, Bennington Triangle, what I know it for, and I think most people do, are the missing people. So I started into research months ahead of time, as far as like basic research to begin with, which is go online, find who the famous five are, write their names down and their dates. And then my next move is to go to newspapers.com and start pulling as many articles as I can, and then compiling them into a folder online, and starting to learn a little bit more about these people who went missing, and seeing how throughout the years stuff either gets resolved or doesn't. Like Frida Langer gets found, but so we see the that come together in the newspaper archives, but nothing else. Of course, getting Joseph Citro's books were important as far as reading that as the guy who termed the coin Bennington Triangle. Then reaching out to him was my next big thing. I mean, it was sort of a situation where we felt we wouldn't be able to do it justice if we didn't talk to Joseph Citro himself. It just didn't seem like that would work. So I reached out to him with fingers crossed and holding my breath that he would be willing to be part of it. And he was excited to be involved, and said that he was all for it, but he would not be able to travel to where we were going to be. So we would have to come to him. And I was like, we will make it work one way or another. We will get to you. So essentially then what I did when it came to actually putting the pieces together, I knew that we would have to dedicate pretty much an entire day to Joseph Citro because of how far out of the way it would be from our main locus of interviews for all of our projects. So I tried to coordinate everything around him. And then of course when it came to Kinderhook, I was actually working with two major things. Kinderhook, we needed Bruce Hallenbeck because it is his story. So I had to work with Bruce Hallenbeck's thing, and then with his schedule and Joseph Citro's schedule, and then try to get everything else to fall in line around those two. Luckily, their times did not overlap, which if they had, we would have made it work because we had enough people that we could split the crew for that. But I know that it would have been very upsetting for Seth to have to miss out on either. Because when it came to the interviews, Seth ran the Bruce Hallenbeck interview and he ran the Joseph Citro interview. And those were the ones that he was really like, I want to, because he trusts me to run interviews, but as the guy who runs the company, he wants to be there for, the guy who coined the term Bennington Triangle. Like he wants to talk with Joseph Citro. So we ended up making it work. But yeah, so reaching out to Joseph Citro, as I was going through some of his books, if I had any particular questions, I would ask him, not right away. I don't ever like to run to people with questions if I haven't thoroughly researched it myself. So if I saw something that he had cited or claimed or whatever in his writings, I would try to find it on my own. And then if I couldn't, then I would go to him. So for example, the whole man-eating rock thing, right? I tried to find that everywhere and I could not. And so I had messaged him and he said he didn't remember where he got it, but he knew that it was in his files or thought it was in his files somewhere, and that he would look. And I don't know if he did end up looking or not, but he ultimately couldn't remember it, which is fine. Also, to put in perspective, he coined the term a good while ago, so I don't expect him to have everything memorized anymore. So, but it would be cool to, just find that little piece somewhere, if it's just an obscure article in a folklore journal or something like that. I want to find things like that. So when I get into researching, whether it's Bennington or anything, I start with the broad stuff, the names, the dates, the main people that you kind of really have to have involved if it's something pivotal like naming the location. And then from there, I start expanding out, like who else has talked about this, who else has been more public about their experiences in the area, and work outward from there. And then when it comes to actually researching the topic, then go into specific like deep dives. I'll take hours and hours out of a day when I get to that point, I'll take hours and hours just deep diving into a subject, trying to kick up anything that I can. And with Bennington, one thing that was different than normal, a lot of the shoots that we go on, I have the majority of the research done ahead of time. And I did for this as well. However, while we were there, we came up with some other questions that we hadn't thought of ahead of time, some other ideas. And so I spent a lot of the time, while not interviewing people, sitting at the kitchen table furiously searching for like descendants of these people that went missing, reaching out, calling people. I spoke with some relatives of some of the missing people and got some of their information, like their thoughts on it as a family, which none of that made the movie, and that's fine. But it adds more weight to it in general for what we do, I think, to have that, the conversation with, like you had mentioned before we got on here, Paul Jepson, right? I reached out to family of his, and, to know how that gets passed down through the family, through generations, the weight of it. It's not that we don't know that, but especially when you come to missing people, to be reminded that there is a heaviness behind it. There is that weight. There is still hurt, even if some of these people didn't know them directly or were very young when they went missing. There's still so much hurt there. And that deserves respect. And I don't think it hurts for anybody to be reminded of that, even if you go into it with that intent anyway. I think it just helps drive that home even more. So anyway.
No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, and to touch on that, like I was telling you off the air, was, when I originally was searching through this on newspaper.com, I only came across articles that were just talking about, Paul only wore blue overalls. He had longish hair, but not too long. But he wasn't, quote, dressed to be out overnight. There was never any other mentioning of like a sweater or a cap or anything. And then after a while, as newspaper.com would have it, if you don't search for a while, stuff gets added, and then all of a sudden, this wasn't here before. So, I don't know with your note for Paul Jepson if you had found a description on him, but my latest new ones that I found on him would basically gave a very good updated description, which is basically told the height of Paul Jepson, the weight of him, and an updated description of what he was possibly wearing. And I was just like, whoa, like, where was this? Like, when I was originally, looking for this. And so anyway, for people that may not know, and I actually had to bite my tongue for this, because for most of my time talking about these missing people, I always heard people like say like, oh, he was wearing red or whatever. And usually it was just like, well, from what you can find, there's only talked about these blue overalls. He wasn't wearing red. He wasn't, like Paul Weldon, who wore the red Parker coat. But now with this newspaper clipping I found, which is kind of titled like "Fear of Foul Play Involved," a very long article, but down near the bottom, there's a updated description of Paul Jepson, and I will quote. It was. They said his description was 4 feet 5 inches, 65 pounds. He had white brown hair, dark brown eyes. He had not blue overalls, but brown overalls, a white tan jacket with button over a red sweater. Then, to top it off, they ended with he was wearing brown shoes, a dark blue knitted cap, and a maroon striped stocking. So not only was he possibly wearing a red sweater, but a maroon striped stocking, which maroon could be considered red.
Yeah. That's one thing that bringing up the patience when it comes to newspapers.com and then going back and double checking. That's also the importance of starting, if you can, with a research project, starting as soon as possible and giving yourself plenty of time to go back and see if anything, because they're constantly digitizing newspapers. Also, being able to, if you can, physically go to these places where the archives are held that may not be digitized and going through them, because who knows? I mean, that's what's on newspapers.com, but there's got to be other I mean, like so many other articles I'm sure that are out there that probably have a whole slew of information that is just not available digitally yet. I've definitely come across that with, even with Kinderhook, calling the local library and asking them for help to locate certain obituaries that are not available online, and only available through like their particular archive, or, you know, some stuff is still like microfilm and not out there for us yet. So, but yeah, when it came to Paul Jepson, when I had contacted a family member, one thing that I don't recall reading, but they had emphasized, was that Paul had had a history of wandering away anyway. And he had had some developmental issues, which caused him to, one, for them to try to watch him more keenly, but also lent to the wandering that he would do. So I don't recall reading that anywhere. I'm not saying that it's not out there.
I can actually back that up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's one of the new articles I found, actually, to be honest with you. There was a new newspaper clipping that, I forget how they worded it. Sorry for interrupting you, Heather, by the way.
No, but I'm excited about this.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was basically titled like mentally handicapped child.
Yeah. 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 I was told that it was a situation where like the umbilical cord had been wrapped around his neck at birth, and so he was deprived of oxygen as a newborn. So that had caused long lasting implications. But they, you know, they were aware of it and they tried to watch him closely. And the way that the day that he went missing was recounted to me was that his mother, well, his parents were both like teachers, and I think his dad was a tax collector as well.
Yes.
They were farmers, they raised hogs, and they ran the town dump. The hogs were there to help kind of clean up the town dump. And the mother had Paul with her and went to go switch there were 2 pens, and she went to go switch the pigs. And then when she came back, he was gone. But it was a rainy day. And another thing that this relative brought up to me is that they had done a 3-week search about, but there was also something that happened nearby. Like he said, 4 guys had escaped somewhere nearby, and for a while there was suspicion that maybe there had been foul play because of these men that had disappeared. But then there was no proof ever found. And I don't have in my notes where they disappeared from, or where they escaped from, or anything like that. But around the same time, there were 4 men that had escaped some sort of institution in the vicinity. So I don't know. Apparently there were human remains that were found 6 to 12 months later. And they were sent to Burlington to kind of be evaluated. And I don't have anything further in my notes beyond that, so I feel like if I didn't write anything down, then that must have been like that's where it ended and they never heard anything back.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was just, I don't know. And where his trail went cold, because that's also written in some of the articles, oddly enough, was on the same road, I believe, that we were staying on. Our Airbnb was just down the road, because I found the last known places on the map, and then I sent some of the guys out to film that. But I feel like it was just down the road from where we were staying is where the trail went cold.
East Road, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, where like the hounds lost the scent or something. So I don't know, but this was 1943, and
1950 for Paul.
1954. 1943 I have written for a relative
Carl.
of his. Never mind.
Probably Carl then.
Oh, I think this was actually his sister's birthday.
Oh, maybe.
Because he had a sister. Yeah, because it's under his section. So, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. It was a while ago, 1954. We don't know yet.
Oh, 1954. I'm thinking 44. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're fine. Right. So it was, who knows if we're ever gonna figure this out. It wasn't 54, right? No, it couldn't have been, because it was 45 to, I have this in my notes.
45 to 1950.
Yeah. Sloppy notes. Where are we? Wrong one. Let's scroll down. Paul was 1950. He was one of two that went missing then. So
yeah, because 2 weeks later after Paul, it was Frida Wenger from North Adams, Massachusetts.
Right. And she
is the one where her body actually showed up. Where they thoroughly searched prior. I forget how many weeks in between, but yeah. Very, very weird stuff nonetheless. But I want to go back to something that you just said. So you said 4 people escaped. So I don't know. I might have said it. I've been thinking about it ever since I watched it. And I want to say I mentioned this old tale back in the 1870s, maybe, about a guy named like Henry McDowell, who supposedly went chaotic because he also kind of claimed that he was, quote, getting lured into the mountain because he was like the mountain was calling him, just like Paul Jepson's father had claimed. And that Paul Jepson was talking about being lured to the mountain before he disappeared. But anyway, it got so bad though for this Henry guy that he actually killed a co-worker with a rock. And then when he got arrested, they basically told him that he was basically insane and he was going to be sent off to the Vermont insane asylum at that time. However, he never made it to the Vermont insane asylum because he somehow escaped. Yeah, so Frida was interesting because she was literally 2 weeks after Paul Jepson. And she was one of those people that knew the outdoors. She'd actually been to the same place before. And from what I recall, she was out with her cousin hiking or snowshoeing or something. She had fallen, gotten wet, and she went back to change her clothes, where her husband was like on the couch or chair with his leg up due to whatever was going on with him. And then I guess somewhere between there and whatever, she like disappeared. Yeah, so it's always just fascinating to me of like, because she's another one where I dove into because there's so much stuff on her.
Yeah.
And you get to see a pattern. And I want to go back to like Paula Weldon for a few things we can touch on real quick, Heather. Like Paula Weldon, not only was she the catalyst for Vermont State Police, but which Vermont State Police was actually formed on July 1st, 1947, I found out. I actually have a date and seen a picture and stuff, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then her father was the one that basically hammered them and even put out a $5,000 reward for any information leading up to finding her, and etc. And what I find interesting is when you hear about Frida Wenger, her husband set out a $100 reward for any information, just like somebody else. I want to say maybe it was James Tedford, maybe. I know there was one more other person that had a family that was basically saying, hey, look, here's $100 just to tell us any information. And it's just crazy.
Yeah. Which I know that like when I just Googled really quickly to like emphasize for anyone who's listening that $100 may not sound like much today, but then it was a lot. Like just right now, $100 in 1950 is $1,300, over $1,300 for us today. So the $5,000 and she went missing in 1946, right? 1946.
Correct. Yep.
Is $83,000. That was the reward that her dad put out for her, for any information. So that is absolutely wild. And it's also wild to look back at things like that and see, which I know that this is how we as humans learn our weaknesses. But the fact that Vermont didn't have a state police, and it took something like that and the push from the father and all of this stuff to be like, you know what, we should probably establish a state police force. It's just wild to think that that didn't exist beforehand. But I also know that's how we come up with, you know, government regulations when everything starts to go bad and waters get polluted to the point we can't drink. Oh, we should probably establish an EPA. The rivers are on fire, you know, like things like that. To that today, it would just blow your mind to be like, oh yeah, this state doesn't have any police. We just borrow from the neighboring states. What?
Which we did at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
The National Guard, I think, was one. New Hampshire and Massachusetts, I think.
Yeah,
if
it would
memory
make sense
serves
for
right.
Massachusetts because it's right there. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I don't know. It's so crazy. And then again, you know that it started to get, well, I hate to use the word popular, but her case did get so well known that, even local author at the time, Shirley Jackson, wanted to write her second novel loosely inspired by her case. So, which is entitled Hang the Man, which I don't know if this was you. You know what? This would be a good question for you. So during the documentary, I was noticing that you guys were talking about book, but you guys actually featured The Missing Girl by Shirley Jackson. Can you touch on that one, Heather?
I am not overly familiar with that one. That would have been, if I'm remembering correctly, when we went to the Bennington Museum and we spoke with Jamie Franklin, the curator. There was a display in there with different books and magazines, and some of them, one of them was Shirley Jackson at least, and then there was the magazine that was like the first public widespread article about Paula Weldon going missing.
I wonder if that was
no,
Fate magazine.
It wasn't Fate, because I feel like that would have stuck in my mind. I'd have to go back and watch it, because there's a moment where he holds it up and you can kind of see the title, and then it skims down through the camera skims down through the table of contents. I'm almost positive it wasn't Fate magazine.
Yeah, now that makes me want to go back again.
Yeah, but anyway,
crazy.
no, I'm not overly familiar with her work, and that is not any knock against her in any way. It's whenever I am, my personal goal when I'm doing research for this kind of stuff is to go for as close to primary sources that are not fictionalized as possible, which would be a primary source. I try to stick as close to the facts as possible before I venture out. And I read about other authors that had looked into her, but I didn't go that far afield.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I tried looking up the missing girl, and all I could find was like it's basically a 13-year-old that just goes missing from a summer camp, and I'm like, and that came out, and that was a short story, so I don't know. So that's why I was like, interesting.
No,
Because
I don't
everybody
know.
kind of knows her second novel, Hang the Man, is pretty much loosely inspired by Paula Weldon. But so
Right.
anyway, Missing Girl made me start to look that up. So that was actually a no. So Heather, the missing people, I mean, we kind of know all that, but I think the goodies here is just a little bit now is just tell us finding these people that you had the honor of, interviewing just a little bit, and then we can kind of start wrapping things up with you, because that's pretty much about it that you had, really, because you had another project that we kind of touched on last conversation that you and Courtney were doing by yourself. So I think it was what happened next. But yeah, just tell us a little bit of your experience of just, hunting down these people and, some witnesses and stuff to help share and make their stories. And what I mean by their stories is the missing people and everything else kind of come to light. Fruition, maybe would be a better term.
Yeah. Well, there are definitely points whenever you're researching an area where if someone's name comes up multiple times, you know that you definitely need to reach out to them. So one of those people was Jamie Franklin at the Bennington Museum. I had reached out to multiple people, and I'm trying to think of exactly like what institutions. Obviously, your friends when you're researching are always local libraries, local historical societies, and museums. And I had reached out to, I think, the local library, and then I don't know if somebody had written an article that I saw online and I found their contact info, but anyway, I was redirected to Jamie Franklin multiple times. And luckily, Jamie was willing to talk. But even at that, what happened with getting in contact with you is that I had actually talked to Alex, since Alex is in New Hampshire and in the area and knows a lot of people in the area. I had said, hey, do you have anyone in Vermont that you think would be an interesting interview? And he mentioned that there was this channel on YouTube that he was very interested in, called Green Mountain Metal Detecting, I think is the name of it. And he explained that although he doesn't do what we do, because literally, I mean, it's what the channel title is. He does metal detecting and he goes out, but he does some historical research into some of the areas that he goes to. And he's like, he's probably got some really awesome stories. He's done some of the research. Like, I think he'd be really cool to talk to. And I reached out to him, and although he seemed really interested, the schedules were not going to work. And he said, I highly recommend that you reach out to Paul. And he gave me your name and I think the link to your website. And I said, sounds good enough for me. And so I started to look into what you've done and seen all the research. And then I'm like, this sounds legit, right? You seem like you're very, first and foremost, interested in recording the history and keeping it out there, retelling these stories so that they don't just disappear when these people pass away. It can live on, and that's huge for me. And that was why I had reached out to you. Of course, whenever you start talking to people who have been doing the research in these areas, and you talk to people who've done podcasts, and it depends on the podcast, because I know a lot of people, it's like a broad brush. They talk about all kinds of weird things all over, and they're not focused in one particular area. Those podcasts don't necessarily, sometimes they do, but they don't necessarily have local contacts. They're just reading what they found on the internet or in a book or whatever and just repeating it. They're not getting the local, on the ground, face-to-face stories from people. But when you get into podcasts that are locally focused by people from the area, which is where we got like Nick Willard's stuff, that's when you talk to them, you can get some of these names from people that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily get unless you're from the area. Because in what we do, it would be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to do what we do the way that we do it if people weren't willing to share information and be open about it. So, and I totally understand wanting to protect your area, your stories, your culture, things like that. And in those instances, you don't get the local historians to talk, right? But in those moments where people are willing to share, and we are able to record it in a different medium than maybe it's already, it's been recorded before, then it's invaluable to have these people that are willing to say, yeah, well, I know you're not from here, but the guy who knows a lot about this stuff is Jamie Franklin or Paul Dulski, or, you're not from here, so let me help you figure out who the local people are. That's huge. Now, I am not opposed at all. And actually, I enjoy when I have enough lead time on a project where I can start diving into and getting to know people locally beforehand. So that I can kind of make those connections on my own. But there are definitely projects where it's just an accelerated timeline, and it's a very high reliance on local people being willing to share information to help us, steer us in a good direction. But all of that still goes with, I don't want to say vetting. When it comes to witnesses, it's a whole different ball game. But when it comes to local researchers and stuff, I don't really want to talk to anybody unless I've seen what they have done, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
Somebody could give me a name and say, hey, this person knows a lot, but and I'm not even saying that they have to write books or anything like that. It could be a blog. It could be a podcast. It could even be that you haven't written anything, but you're the local historian that everybody knows. If I can get that feeling from you when I talk to you that you know what you're talking about, then that has some weight. But it absolutely comes down to people who are willing to share what they've learned and not hoard their resources. Sometimes it's like a gatekeeping type situation, but other times it's not. It is literally just about, this is my knowledge that I earned and I gained, and you don't get it. And that's fine if you feel that way, but it also, I think, is short-sighted. I guess it's short-sighted if your goal is to ultimately preserve these stories. If your goal is to get this information for yourself, then whatever you're doing exactly what you wanted to do. But if your goal is to preserve stuff and get people to know it, and especially when it comes to missing people, we may never, ever know, especially at this point, what happened to any of these missing people from the 40s, but it still keeps their memory alive. And maybe someday, with the advances of everything that we have, maybe something gets solved eventually, and generations down the line we figure things out, but we're never going to if we don't preserve their story. So or nobody will care, and that's even sadder.
Right.
So I don't know. There's it all comes down to the human element for me with all of this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I've definitely, as researching, I've reached out to people and I've been turned down. They don't want to talk about it, or
Or
even
they
with
want to
these.
talk about it, but they don't want to like have it on record per se.
Yeah, and even with that, like, and I'm okay with that if they're willing to talk about it and they don't want to be like on camera. I get that. I totally understand not wanting to be on a camera. But I don't know. I've had people where, even with reaching out to some of the relatives of the missing people while we were in Vermont, there's still some bitterness with some of the families that, more wasn't done, or just the general familial fallout from losing a father, a mother, a sister, a brother, it
Yeah.
impacted the family, and that was a long lasting repercussion. Um, and I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like all of that, as painful as it may be, is still worthy of preservation, because it puts a face, uh, a soul, I guess, behind the names and the statistics. And I think that as a whole, we don't do that enough.
No.
Um,
I
so
think we're whacking that nowadays, to be honest with you.
yeah, me too. And I don't know. When it comes to the missing people, like it's hard when you call relatives and they are a generation or two removed and it's still painful for them. I don't think I would be able to handle it in any length of time to do modern missing people. Just because it is so fresh, but I still think it's important work. I just don't think mentally I'd be able, I wouldn't be able to do it. But um, anyway, getting back to contacting people, it's all about who's willing to share, who's willing to be open. When it comes to witnesses, I've also run into people who, and completely understandably so, um, with people, especially witnesses, there is something about gaining a trust and a rapport with people that they feel comfortable enough to tell you whatever their story is. Obviously, they feel comfortable with you to tell that story. They don't necessarily feel comfortable with some stranger from another state coming in and saying, "Tell me your story." um, and so sometimes researchers are like, "Yeah, I've got witnesses, but I'm not going to give you their information." Like, it took me years to earn that trust. I know they're not going to, and I understand that, and that's respectable and makes sense. My only request is please make sure that either they write it down or you do, um, so that it's not lost
Yep.
eventually.
Yeah.
Even
I
if
feel
we
that.
can't be the ones to record it, please write it down somewhere.
Yeah, because
uh,
every story to me is important, because I think I even mentioned this with when I chatted with like Ronald, even when it comes to like
yeah.
talking about the Phantom, like even with you, like there's so much similarity with some of this phenomena stuff where it gets at what point do we just say like there's so much similarity thing, what like how can we not ignore it, and like what is going on, because it is just almost the same stuff, like like what what else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like we could say for the true crime thing, it's like I wonder if anybody kind of caught on to oh man, what's the term that the crime people like, like they start seeing a pattern, like that pattern, I guess, for lack of word. And
Mm-hmm.
um maybe in this case it's like, well, what sort of patterns are going on that we could take away from that, and
Yeah.
then maybe start to brainstorm of what could be, kind of thing. Like, it's, I don't know, I don't want to keep blabbing like that, but you get what I'm saying, Heather. I know you
Yeah.
do, but
Absolutely.
yeah, like with these phantom lights, I mean, I don't know what they are, but right now it has my fascination start to absorb everything that I want to try to learn and figure out. I mean, even my theories of stuff isn't ever been mentioned by anybody. Like I started to bring up like the colors, like maybe we all need to start looking at the colors as like the spiritual color meaning. Could that have something to do with it? And
Yeah.
I mean, some people may not find it to be like that. Some people may be like, that's an interesting idea. It all depends on who you talk to, really. And
Yeah.
you know, for all I know, maybe like, and I'm bringing in for the listener, I'm bringing up the Phantom Light thing because there is a little section about the mysterious balls of light around Bennington and stuff like that. But again, I just want to first say, Heather, it's actually hard for me to even get people from Vermont to share their stories, let alone trying to get them to trust me with their stories. I've had this one lady that was a relative to like Sandra Mancy, who is known for the champ photo, but maybe it was just the way I worded something or something where I never heard back from them again. But you know what I mean? Like it gets very hard.
It does. And I I know it's hard, and I know at least from the angle that I have to come at things where I mean, I can reach out to somebody and ask them questions and talk to them, but the minute that being on camera or any type of media aspect comes in, even if you get past the nerves of being on camera, there are people that have told their stories on camera, and then they have been edited in such a way that they've been made to look foolish. They've been made to essentially say things that they didn't say just because of the magic of editing, I guess. We've also run into people who spoke with like major networks. And, with every production, there is a release that you have to sign that says, yes, I'm giving them permission to, record me. It wasn't, unknown. So like, even we have to do that. But we've talked with people who were on major networks, and their main concern now is, if I tell you the story, do I still own my story? Because some of these networks have it in their contract that they own that story in the way that you said it, and you can never repeat it again. They want exclusive rights to that story for the remainder of your life or their duration of being or whatever. And I think that that's completely wrong in so many ways. But it's also something that, as like an independent company, we also have had to work against in certain situations to kind of, assure them, you can tell us your story, but you can go tell it to 100 other people too, 100 other outlets. You can go tell it to History Channel if you want, or Nat Geo or whoever you want to talk to. We don't own it. It's your experience, your story. But we've had people who've been burned. I have a witness that I'm going to talk to tomorrow. I was actually supposed to talk to him yesterday, but a family thing came up for him. But he's a Bigfoot witness who is a fan of our stuff. He actually had reached out to us. He wants to share his story just so somebody hears him. He wants somebody to listen. He's not willing to go on camera. He doesn't want it recorded because when he had his experience, he spoke to some family and friends and was heavily ridiculed. And he never, ever wants to go through that again. He went through it with family. He doesn't want to open it up to the public. And he also doesn't want to reopen old wounds with family. And I understand that and I respect that. And I'm willing to listen. I still want to hear it. I still want to know your story. And, it's a situation where maybe someday down the line, we can record it in such a way that it's anonymous, but still recorded so that we have the data, for long-term knowledge and gain, for the greater Sasquatch phenomenon or whatever understanding of the whole thing. But I get it. There's a lot of reason to be trepidatious when it comes to this whole thing when we're talking in this arena where even the experts on the grander scale of people are criticized for even considering this stuff. And I say experts loosely, because we don't know any answers, but the people who've been studying this for years, for the larger general population, they're still considered weird. Because why are you even entertaining ghosts? Why are you entertaining UFOs? Although UFOs are starting to come into
my mom.
But yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Just for like a quick giggle, like I was on Shannon McGraw's podcast Into the Fray to share my first few encounters. And after her interview, I was just like, I'm going to ask my mom about this one particular night. So, of course, I go up to my mother and I'm like, hey, I got a question. Do you remember this time when I was young and I couldn't find the doorknob and this and that? She's like, why the hell are you talking? Why are you bringing this up? Like, why are you bringing this up? I'm just wondering. Well, all I remember about it is just the power outage. Oh, okay. Okay, but it's always why do you need to bring it up? Man.
Yeah.
But my mom was also that one, like when I first started doing this haunted Vermont stuff, like if I would go and I swear to God something would come back with me, maybe just because I just said hello and acknowledged the spirit kind of thing. One time, I don't know I forget what happened, but something happened in the kitchen, like something moved on its own or something. All of a sudden, my mom goes, "Get your spirits out of this house!" And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" So, yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So there is some belief in it to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, here's another short one for you, Heather, and then we can move on. But like, there was a time back in what would that have been? October 2023. I went to Dummerston, Vermont, where the legend of the Lieutenant Spaulding family vampire is, and I found the family plot because that's the legend where like this mysterious vine grew between one coffin to the next coffin, and once the vine reached the other coffin, this other family member died, and then they were buried, and then the vine would grow to the other one and die, and it did this. It got to the point where they were dying so fast that the town went to their plot, dug up the ground, found this mysterious root, and chopped it up, and it supposedly stopped whatever was going on. And it's it's really weirder because the historian the guy who basically writes about the towns and like put them in the book, basically, I can't think of the term right now, so forgive me, but anyway, basically the history of the town, basically, so the history of Dummerston book, this guy literally wrote that in the book. So we're talking like 18 whatever again, but it's there in the book about this mysterious, creepy vine. So anyway, so me and my friend went there. We found the grave, yada, yada, yada. We saw this one particular grave that looked like it's never been cared for in a long time. Just underneath some trees, moss all over it. We go up to it. I scrape off some of the moss just so I could read the name or whatever. But I think that was enough because anyway, I get home after dropping my friend off, editing the video together as fast as I possibly could because I was trying to get it done and over with. But anyway, later on that following night, 3 a.m. of all times, my bedroom light, and I just want to clarify this, my bedroom light is a pole string. I just want to clarify this. That that light turned on at 3 a.m. woke me up in the dead of sleep, and I shot up, and first thing I thought of was, oh great, somebody followed me or something, and I'm just like, that's very rude. I acknowledge that you are trying to get my attention, but I am trying to sleep, thank you. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go back to bed, and that's it. and it never happened again. But it was just so weird it came that quick, though. But yeah, that's my fun little story.
That's awesome. Just
Yeah,
acknowledgement, like, "Hey, thanks for cleaning my grave. Thanks for caring."
I've actually been starting to learn how to clean graves, actually. So I've been
Yeah,
doing that. So,
that's awesome.
um, yeah. But I want to go back to Andy because you mentioned Andy because I was getting confused with house stories again, I guess.
Mhm.
Anyway, Andy brought up a particular thing in the documentary, which is his compass. I mean, was acting weird, which goes back to your
Yes.
GPS stuff. So anyway, after I had got done that following June, to talk with you guys, I actually went back to that area for July 4th because I had it off from work because I
Mhm.
wanted to go back and try to find these graves that I haven't been to in like basically 12 years. And
Right,
anyway,
right.
anyway, uh, not to take it too long, but basically I had an idea of where they were. I knew they weren't that far up, but somehow I managed to think I wasn't far enough, so I kept walking. Next thing I know, I'm in the woods, off trail. I'm like, okay, well, I can pull out my phone and use my GPS to, get back to the parking lot. Or at least try to figure out where I am to whatever. And Brad from Green Mountain Metal Detecting had sent me like Google pin of like where like certain things were, and he had pinned me
That's cool.
where the grave, what a grave were. And
Mhm.
anyway, long story short, I somehow kept going deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods. And at one
Yeah.
point, I was just like, screw it. I'm putting the GPS in my phone down because clearly something was just not right about this. Because when
Mhm.
I thought I was going towards, you know, towards it, I was not. It looked like I guess I was going away from it. So I basically was just like, now I need to figure out where I am and not just freak out because again, I don't really have any water or food on me either. Just a backpack with just a bunch of equipment. And basically I was just like, well,
So
what
you
I need
understand.
to and and so then I was just like, all right, if I can just find the path again and get onto the path that I know of, I can get back. And I did. I eventually found my way, but oh my god, the GPS was not on my side that day. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me a little bit of Professor Bob Singley's story, which kind of the bookends for uh the Bennington movie, where he was someone who in recent history went missing for a very short period of time, but it was a similar situation where you know, eh, he was aware that the surroundings he was in were not where he should have been. Like, it just didn't make any sense at all, and, ended up spending the night on the mountain, and then when things were clearer during the day, it's almost like it made even less sense because he could clearly see that he was not, like, I mean, it was more than a feeling at that point. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be here. It makes no sense that I can't find my way back. But then to actively see it during the daylight and have that visual confirmation that there is no way that I should be here. Um, I don't know. It's just, it's weird, but you made it out, which is the biggest thing, the most important thing. You made it home. It all worked out. As did Professor Bob. Uh, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. That's what I should also add in too, real quick. So even though I wasn't one of the ones like Dr. Bob here that stayed the night, but I got
yeah.
there at 10 o'clock in the morning because I just wanted to quickly get there, do a couple things at the graveyard, and go back home so I could
Hmm.
prepare the thing. Anyway, long story short, 5.5 hours later is when I find the graves.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I should also add.
5.5 hours later.
5.5 hours later.
Oh my gosh.
Because the GPS is
Yeah.
just not, like I said, I don't know, whatever. Basically, like what people will hear about Andy's story, like whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't
That
know.
is wild.
Yeah, I couldn't explain that one except for I just put my phone away and I just said, all right, I'm going to go this way and I'm going to pray that I find the freaking trail. Because once I get on the trail, I know where I'm going from there.
Yeah.
What a pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Oh yeah, and for those wondering, I did find the graves. I did a little bit of videos, but I didn't do everything that I wanted to do, which means I need to go back again. So this time I
Yeah.
at least know what I'm looking for, because when I did find them, I made damn well sure know where I'm going this time when I go back. So
Yeah.
that's always fun. Yeah.
Not repeating the same things again. We don't need
God
another
no.
5.5 hour journey.
No, I couldn't believe it when it was 3:30 when I got there by 10. So, yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, Heather, yeah, that's all I have for you. If there was anything else though that you would just like to share, maybe that I didn't get a chance to let you talk about, of like your research or interviews in general, maybe just a final word of like, I don't know, like did you enjoy your time at Bennington?
Of course, I enjoyed my time in Bennington. Vermont in general, I will always want to return to. I absolutely love it in that Ohio is home, West Virginia feels like home, and Vermont feels a lot like West Virginia. So between those three, I'm very happy when I'm there. So, but yeah, when it comes to other stories as far as that trip, I can't really think of any. I will say that when we did go up to a fire tower, and the name of the mountain is escaping me. It was
Bald
north of
Mountain?
us.
Oh, Bald
Yeah,
Mountain.
yeah, yeah. I think that might have been it. Bald Mountain. We went up to that fire tower, and um so we had to take like a gondola up on top of the mountain, and then we had to take a path, and the path then intersects with the Appalachian Trail, right where, and that's where the fire tower is. And first of all, the trail there, um we were told it was like, I don't know, half a mile or something to get to the fire tower. And again, it was a situation where it just went on and on and on and on, and we were like, did we miss a turn somewhere? And we kept going, and we eventually got there, but there were multiple times that we were like, we've been walking way more than a half mile. There's no way that this is, and maybe half mile is uh the wrong phrase there, but it was something very short. Like we should have been there, it felt like. But once we got there, we actually ran into a couple people who were hiking the Appalachian Trail. And that was really cool to talk with them. Not for very long, of course, because, they've got a schedule to uphold, as we did too. But it was really interesting to see these people that are, the one guy was on the very last leg of his journey. He had started down south, and this was the end. And then this other guy, I think he was just hiking Long Trail, which coincides with the Appalachian Trail, I believe, in that area. But it was cool to see these people doing some pretty incredible things. And the view from the fire tower was amazing. It was just really really pretty. I don't know, that's what it all keeps coming back to. It was just really pretty there. It's really pretty.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Well, anyway, Heather, I thank you for your time and your little chat and
Yeah.
stuff, and it was an honor to meet you and Courtney, since you two were the only ones there. So,
I'm so
everybody else was
glad.
doing their
And
thing.
your tattoos are amazing. I will always say that. I was so excited when I was like, You're one of me. You're just like me. I don't have those tattoos, but I appreciate them very much.
Oh
So.
no. Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't know what to expect, so I was just like, I should just probably wear a tank top because I think it was one of those days like you were mentioning where it was like really hot. And I
So
think
hot. Oh
I'm
yeah.
so glad because when I was doing the interview there, I don't know if it showed in the audio before you fixed it up or whatever, but it felt like inside your cabin was so dry or something. It was like,
Yeah. Well, and we had you come upstairs and heat rises,
which
so
was
it was
worse.
hotter up there
Which was
than
worse.
downstairs for sure. But yeah, no, it was ridiculous. I think that at one point the air conditioner kind of just gave up on us and was like, "Nah, I'm not doing this."
Yeah, I think that might have been the day where it gave up on you, son. Or maybe it was just because it was so noisy you didn't want it for the interview thing for the background
Yeah,
interference.
yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, I'm always willing to share my encounters of the paranormal. At least I can't say cryptid wise, but yeah, I have way too many unknown stuff that has happened to me as I kind of shared a few with you, Heather. So I mean,
Yeah.
random light turning on. I mean, whatever.
Mhm.
The way I look at it is just that's just a way of trying to get my attention because I acknowledge them. Then so be it. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of play that card of, oh my God, that's scary. It's like, well, maybe take a second and realize, like, hey, maybe did you just like try to acknowledge a spirit and now it's trying to say, like, hey, I see you. You know, not like in a bad way, but like in a good way, I
Right.
guess is what I should leave it as. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
Heather, thank you again for your time, your hospitality at that time, and everything
Oh
else.
my goodness. Yeah, thanks for coming out and talking with us and um having me on here. And one quick note, if anybody is interested in small town monsters and what we do, that we are doing a Kickstarter again next year, February 5th of 2026. And I cannot emphasize enough how we would literally not be able to do what we do without a successful Kickstarter. Um, from beyond high strangeness in the Bennington Triangle absolutely would not exist without the Kickstarter being successful. So um, if you guys are interested in what we do and you want to support, even in a small way, any way is support, even if it's just sharing the campaign. Check out our Kickstarter.